The shocking truth about the Buddha. Are we being deceived? Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. What if everything you know about Buddhism and Hinduism is based on a lie? Today, we will delve into a religious controversy so intense that it could rewrite the spiritual history of the East. Imagine the Buddha, an enlightened sage and founder of one of the world's great religions, being revealed as a disguised Hindu deity. You may have heard that some Hindus claim Buddha is an incarnation of Vishnu, sent to earth as part of a divine plan. But this is where the story becomes more complex. Buddhists vehemently oppose this claim, arguing that it is not a divine revelation, but a spiritual appropriation. In the next 20 minutes, we will unravel a mystery that has divided millions. You'll hear controversial viewpoints from both sides, explore ancient texts that hint at hidden truths, and confront a groundbreaking theory that could upend the entire debate. By the end of this video, you may find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about these two major religions. Prepare for a journey to the heart of Eastern spirituality. Before we begin, I want to emphasize that our goal is exploration and education, not to offend or disrespect any religious belief. This video will present various perspectives to encourage open discussion and mutual understanding. The uneasy coexistence of Buddhism and Hinduism has sparked a controversy that threatens to change how we understand both religions. Imagine a Hindu scripture casually mentioning Buddha as one of Vishnu's incarnations. This would be akin to discovering Superman and Batman are the same person. Though seemingly harmless, this claim has ignited a profound philosophical conflict. For Hindus, it is a natural acknowledgement of a great teacher. For Buddhists, it is seen as a serious misunderstanding or even a deliberate distortion of the Buddha's identity and teachings. The founder of one of the world's most influential religions, this debate not only impacts individuals, but also shakes the foundational principles of two of the world's major religions. If Buddha is indeed an incarnation of Vishnu, it could completely change our understanding of Buddhism. Conversely, if this claim is false, it calls into question the centuries-old legitimacy of Hindu traditions. Millions of devotees have been drawn into this spiritual struggle, with strongly opposing views on the matter. Let us now examine the metaphorical bombshell that Hinduism has dropped, shaking the foundations of Eastern religions. Some Hindu traditions boldly claim that the Buddha is the ninth incarnation of Vishnu. This is not a vague or obscure theory. It is a belief held by millions of Hindus worldwide. In the sacred text Bhagavata Purana, Buddha is listed as one of Vishnu's incarnations. The text explicitly states that at the beginning of the Kali Yuga, Vishnu will appear in the form of Buddha, the son of Anjana, in the region of Gaya, with the purpose of misleading atheists. It portrays Buddha as a divine figure who appears to guide unworthy individuals into practicing heretical rituals. The implication of this ancient text is profound. The Buddha's entire mission was part of Vishnu's grand plan. But it doesn't end there. Some Hindu scholars argue that Buddha's teachings align perfectly with Vishnu's role as the preserver of Dharma. They highlight Buddha's emphasis on compassion and his efforts to reform harmful practices as fulfilling Vishnu's sacred duty. From this perspective, the Buddha is not a rebel against Hinduism, but a reformer fulfilling his divine mission as an incarnation of Vishnu. This interpretation overturns the entire narrative of Buddhism, suggesting that Buddha's rejection of the caste system and harmful rituals was not a break from Hinduism, but rather an internal purification. A similar perspective argues that Buddha was not the founder of a new religion, but a reformer of Hinduism, sent by Vishnu. Proponents of this theory present compelling evidence, pointing to the similarities between Buddhism and certain schools of Hindu thought, particularly shared concepts such as karma and reincarnation. Some even argue that Buddha's Eightfold Path is a refined version of Hindu ethical teachings. However, this is not a call for peace, but a theological power play with the potential to absorb Buddhism back into Hinduism. Predictably, this has not been easily accepted. Buddhists have vehemently opposed this notion, particularly by referencing Buddha's core teachings. They frequently cite the Buddha's words from the Nikaya scriptures. "I am not a god or any kind of divine being. I am a human who has discovered the path to enlightenment." In numerous texts, the Buddha explicitly rejects the idea of a supreme creator and emphasizes that the universe operates according to natural laws, not divine will. For Buddhists, the claim that Buddha is an incarnation of Vishnu directly contradicts the core teachings of Buddhism. Buddhist scholars' perspective on the controversy. Buddhist scholars argue that the idea of Buddha as a reincarnation of Vishnu is a later invention of Hinduism, absent from early Buddhist texts. They view this as an attempt to undermine the unique identity of Buddhism and reabsorb it into Hinduism. For them, this is not an interfaith dialogue, but an act of spiritual colonization. Buddhists emphasize the human origins of Siddhartha Gautama, a prince who grappled with existential questions and attained enlightenment through personal effort. This narrative of human potential lies at the heart of Buddhist philosophy. Portraying Buddha as a divine incarnation, they argue, diminishes the power and relevance of his story for ordinary people. Buddhist opposition extends beyond philosophical arguments. They see this as an example of Hindu appropriation of Buddhist sites and symbols. From Bodh Gaya to statues and temples that have been converted into Hindu sites, Buddhists are fighting to reclaim their cultural and spiritual heritage. For instance, at the Global Buddhist Conference in 2013 in New Delhi, heated debates erupted when some Hindu speakers referred to Buddha as a reformer of Hinduism, prompting strong protests from Buddhist delegates. This demonstrates that the controversy over the relationship between Buddhism and Hinduism extends beyond academic theories and into real-world interfaith dialogues today. Some Buddhist leaders have gone further, claiming that the assertion of Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu is not recognition but a form of spiritual aggression. According to them, this is part of a broader effort to erase Buddhism's distinct identity in its homeland. For these Buddhists, the controversy is not about religious harmony, but survival. This Buddhist resistance has transformed the debate into a battle to defend the very soul of their religion, a battle they do not intend to lose. Historical context. To understand this issue, we must rewind to India around 500 BCE, when Buddhism emerged as a direct challenge to the established Hindu order. The Buddha rejected the caste system and the authority of the Vedas, opening a path to enlightenment for all, regardless of social class. Suddenly, Hinduism faced its first major ideological rival on its home turf. Fast forward a few centuries, Buddhism spread across the Indian subcontinent and beyond. Hindu temples fell into disuse, and the social hierarchy was threatened. This was when Hinduism began a period of revival. Some historians suggest that depicting Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu was not a gesture of respect, but a calculated move in a religious chess game aimed at neutralizing the Buddhist threat by claiming Buddha as their own. The political dimensions of the Buddha-Vishnu controversy. Hindu leaders may have argued that Buddhism was not a separate religion, but merely a part of Hinduism. This perspective not only diminishes Buddhism's unique identity, but may have also contributed to its decline in India. They questioned, why follow Buddha's teachings when you can worship him as Vishnu? A striking example of this dynamic is the sacred Buddhist site of Bodh Gaya. Over centuries, Bodh Gaya was gradually absorbed into Hindu traditions, with a Shaivite monastery established there. It wasn't until the 19th century that Buddhists regained control of the site, thanks to British archaeologists. This highlights that the controversy is not just about theology, but also reflects a cultural battle for the control of spiritual heritage. The narrative of Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu increasingly appears less about spiritual truth and more about religious politics and power struggles. Two sides of the debate. Some argue that this interpretation reflects a cynical view of a complex historical process, while others claim it is a necessary re-evaluation of sanitized historical accounts. This adds another layer of intrigue to the story. The key question is no longer whether Buddha was an incarnation of Vishnu, but why people believe this. Suddenly, we are not discussing ancient mythology, but confronting real historical forces that have shaped religious traditions. Hindu claims and textual evidence. On the Hindu side, influential texts like the Bhagavata Purana clearly list Buddha as the ninth incarnation of Vishnu. The 12th century Gita Govinda reinforces this claim, exalting, "O Lord of the universe, O Lord Hari, who assumed the form of Buddha with all glory, O Buddha of compassion, who rejected the cruelty of outdated animal sacrifices in rituals." These are not obscure texts. They hold significant influence for millions of Hindus. Additionally, Hindu scholars emphasize that Buddha's compassion reflects Vishnu's role as the preserver of cosmic order. Some even compare the Buddhist concept of nirvana to the Hindu moksha, suggesting a deep connection between the two religions. Buddhist counter-arguments. The Buddhist side is equally steadfast. They bring forth their earliest canonical texts, which make no mention of Vishnu or the concept of incarnations. In these scriptures, Buddha is portrayed as a human being who explicitly rejected the notion of creator gods. Buddhist scholars also use linguistic evidence, pointing out that the Sanskrit term avatar does not appear in early Buddhist literature. When it does appear in later texts, it is used metaphorically, not literally. Historical context and timing. The plot thickens when we consider the timeline. The earliest references to Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu emerged during the Gupta period, centuries after Buddha's death. This raises the possibility that these claims were a strategic response during a period when Hinduism was reasserting itself and Buddhism was losing prominence in India. Through these arguments, it becomes clear that the Buddha-Vishnu debate is not merely a theological or philosophical issue, but a reflection of historical, cultural, and political struggles that have shaped the religious landscapes of India. This raises the question of whether associating the Buddha with Vishnu was a historical and political intervention of the era. The debate over the relationship between Buddhism and Hinduism continues to grow more complex as another factor emerges: the possibility that the story of the Buddha being an incarnation of Vishnu might be a later invention rather than an original truth. Art history provides further evidence. Early Buddhist art does not depict the Buddha as a deity. Only in later centuries do Buddha-like images begin to be assimilated into Hindu iconography. This could suggest cultural appropriation or assimilation. Archaeological studies add to the complexity. Many Buddhist stupas were repurposed as Hindu temples. For example, at the Ellora caves in Maharashtra, sculptures of the Buddha can be seen in one cave, while nearby caves contain images of Hindu gods. Some scholars argue that similarities in artistic styles may reflect a deliberate effort to integrate Buddhist imagery into the Hindu context. These sites have become battlegrounds for competing historical narratives. As evidence continues to accumulate, it is clear that this is not a straightforward confrontation between right and wrong, but a clash of worldviews, each supported by its own distinct evidence. The question is not who has more evidence, but how we interpret it. With each new archaeological discovery and reinterpretation of ancient texts, the debate evolves. This controversy is not merely a relic of the past buried in libraries, but a live issue in the modern world, affecting everything from courtrooms to social media and sacred sites. In 2013, the Mahabodhi Temple complex, Buddhism's holiest site, became a flashpoint when a series of bombings exacerbated tensions between Buddhists and Hindus in India. Although the perpetrators' motives were complex, the incident highlighted the fragility of interfaith relations. In the digital age, this battleground has shifted to social media. Hindu nationalists flood online platforms with claims that the Buddha originated from Hinduism, while Buddhist activists counter with hashtag campaigns asserting the Buddha's independent identity. In 2015, a storm erupted when a prominent Hindu leader tweeted that the Buddha was a reformer of Hinduism, prompting the global Buddhist community to respond with the hashtag #BuddhaNotHindu, backed by historical quotes and events. Meanwhile, legal battles over control of ancient Buddhist relics continue. These are not merely disputes over real estate, but struggles for the legitimacy of history and the authority to oversee the visual legacy of these religious heritages. The debate over the relationship between Buddhism and Hinduism has drawn political leaders into the fray, with actions that sometimes escalate tensions. In 2015, the Prime Minister of India drew attention when he gifted a statue of the Buddha to a Hindu temple in Mongolia. This raised questions about whether the gesture symbolized religious harmony or subtly asserted that the Buddha was an incarnation of Vishnu. The controversy raged for weeks as supporters on both sides argued over the significance of the action. Beyond politics, education has also become a battleground. Heated debates have arisen over how the Buddha is portrayed in textbooks, with each side accusing the other of attempting to rewrite history to fit their narrative. Even international relations have not been immune to the intensity of this debate. Chinese officials have claimed that the Buddha was born in Nepal, a statement viewed not merely as a geographic dispute, but as an effort to detach the Buddha from his Indian origins, and perhaps even Hinduism. The Dalai Lama, often regarded as a symbol of religious harmony, has also been drawn into the debate. He has stated that the Buddha was born in India and is part of Indian culture. However, various groups have interpreted his statements in their own ways, using them as ammunition in the battle over religious identity. Even calls for unity can be exploited in this ideological conflict. This debate is no longer confined to academic discussions in ivory towers. It is a conflict reshaping the religious landscape of South Asia. A provocative possibility has also emerged. The entire controversy may be based on a significant misunderstanding. What if, instead of the Buddha being an incarnation of Vishnu, it was Vishnu who was influenced by the Buddha? Some scholars argue that the earliest references to the Buddha as an incarnation of Vishnu only appeared centuries after the Buddha's death, during a time when Buddhism had deeply influenced India. Wendy Doniger, a renowned scholar of religion, has noted that Hinduism lacks a single founder, a single scripture, and a unified set of doctrines. Instead, it is a fusion of many beliefs and practices, some of which may have originated from other traditions, including Buddhism. The concept of compassion, central to Hinduism, may have been influenced by the Buddha. The idea of a benevolent deity incarnating to teach humanity bears significant similarities to the Buddhist concept of the bodhisattva. Some researchers have also pointed out that the worship of Vishnu gained popularity during the same period when Buddhism was at its peak in India. This suggests that Buddhism may have influenced the worship of Vishnu. If this perspective is correct, rather than Buddhism being shaped by Hinduism, it may be that Hinduism itself was transformed by Buddhism. Vishnu, a deity who renounces violence and teaches compassion, may have been more profoundly influenced by the Buddha than previously recognized. Early Vedic texts depict Vishnu as merely a minor solar deity, but by the time of the Bhagavad Gita, he had evolved into a supreme god who incarnates to teach Dharma, a concept strikingly similar to the Buddhist bodhisattva. This theory not only challenges the claim that the Buddha was an incarnation of Vishnu, but also rewrites the entire history of interaction between Buddhism and Hinduism, altering our understanding of how these two great traditions have shaped one another over millennia. Of course, this theory is stirring intense debate. Hindu scholars argue that it undermines the antiquity and continuity of Hindu traditions. Meanwhile, some Buddhists worry that it could weaken the uniqueness and independence of the Buddha's teachings. Yet, if this theory proves accurate, it would indeed be a profound irony. The claim that Buddhism was absorbed into Hinduism could, in fact, serve as evidence of Buddhism's deep influence on Hinduism. Hindu practitioners might counter that this is not merely an unexpected twist in the narrative, but a systemic shift that forces us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the history of religion. The implications of this controversy extend beyond revising our understanding of spiritual traditions. It compels us to reflect on how these two major religions have interacted and shaped each other over centuries, raising profound questions about the nature of religion, identity, and cultural integration. What do you think about the debate between Buddhism and Hinduism? Share your thoughts in the comments below.